Nothing like being a +1 at a party where you're the punchline. I straightened my tie and watched my wife Kalia work the room like she owned it. Maybe she did. At 38, she was head of business development at Trenwall Industries, and tonight's company gala was her stage. Me, I'm Orion Vanton, 41, security consultant, and apparently tonight's entertainment. The ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and fake smiles. Kalia moved between clusters of suits, her laugh carrying across the marble floor. She looked stunning in that black dress, the one I'd bought her for our anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on me. Orion, right? A woman with too much makeup appeared beside me. I'm Marla from Kalia's department. She talks about you all the time. I doubted that, but smiled anyway. All good things, I hope. Oh, absolutely. Her eyes said otherwise. Must be nice being married to someone so ambitious. Before I could respond, a voice boomed across our corner. Well, if it isn't the security guard, Rhett Vosen, Kalia's boss, late 40s, expensive suit, and the kind of arrogance that comes from never being punched in the face. He approached with his usual swagger, a glass of champagne in one hand and contempt in his eyes. Actually, I run my own consulting firm, I said evenly. Right. Consulting. He made air quotes. Kalia's told me all about your little business. The way he said it made my jaw clench. Around us, conversations quieted. Kalia appeared at Rhett's elbow, her face pale. Rhett, have you met the new investors from Chicago? She said quickly. He ignored her, focusing on me with predatory intensity. You know, Orion, I've been meaning to talk to you, man to man. I'm listening. Your wife spends a lot of time at the office, late nights, weekend projects, business trips. He stepped closer, lowering his voice just enough to make it intimate. Sometimes a woman needs guidance from someone who understands her potential. The room felt smaller suddenly. Kalia's hand touched Rhett's arm. Maybe we should... She's mine at work, Rhett continued, his breath smelling of expensive whiskey. Wait your turn. Then he did it. Right there in front of 50 people, he spat on my shoe. The ballroom went silent except for the soft jazz quartet in the corner, still playing as if nothing had happened. I looked down at the wet spot on my leather dress shoe, then back up at Rhett's smirking face. Kalia's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Her colleagues pretended to study their drinks. The security chief, Frank Morrison, a guy I'd served with in Afghanistan, took a step forward, but I caught his eye and shook my head slightly. Interesting technique, I said, pulling out my phone. Very professional. I typed a quick message. Package delivered, initiating phase 1. The recipient was Helena Trenwall herself, company owner, and, unknown to everyone in this room except me, my business partner for the last 6 months. Rhett straightened his tie. Glad we understand each other. Oh, we do. I smiled, the kind of smile that had made Taliban fighters nervous. We absolutely do. I walked away, leaving Rhett basking in his moment of triumph, and Kalia frozen in mortified silence. Behind me, conversations resumed in hushed tones. Let them talk. They had no idea what was coming. In the men's room, I cleaned my shoe and checked my reflection. Same face, same build, same guy everyone underestimated. But something had shifted tonight. The gloves were coming off. My phone buzzed. A text from Luca, the bartender and my oldest friend. Saw the whole thing. That guy's got enemies. Want me to ask around? I typed back, already on it, keep your ears open. When I returned to the ballroom, Rhett was holding court near the bar, probably retelling his victory story. Kalia stood beside him, laughing at something he'd said. She caught my eye across the room, and her smile faltered. I raised my champagne glass in a mock toast. She looked away. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of small talk and sideways glances. I played the part of the dutiful husband, shaking hands and making nice with people who clearly saw me as Kalia's unfortunate accessory. Around midnight, we rode home in silence. Kalia stared out the passenger window at the city lights while I navigated the empty streets. "You handled that well," she said finally. "Did I?" "Rhett can be intense. He doesn't mean anything by it." I pulled into our driveway and shut off the engine. "Spitting on someone is pretty particular, Kalia. Most people would say that shows something." She turned to face me, her expression unreadable in the dashboard light. "He was showing off. You know how men get at these things. How men get." I repeated the words slowly. "Is that what you call it?" "Don't make this bigger than it is, Orion. Please." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I got out of the car without responding. Inside the house, she went straight upstairs while I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and sat in my home office. The room was lined with security monitors showing feeds from around our property, old habits from my consulting work. I opened my laptop and began typing. The first email went to Helena Trenwall, confirming our conversation from earlier in the week. The second went to Emma Rodriguez, a private investigator I'd worked with before. The third was to my sister Beth, asking if I could use her guest room for a few days next week. By 3 a.m, I had a plan. By dawn, it would be in motion. Upstairs, Kalia was already asleep, or pretending to be. I stood in the doorway watching her breathe, thinking about the woman I'd married and the stranger she'd become. Tomorrow would bring answers. Tonight had brought clarity. Rhett Vossen thought he'd won something. He had no idea he'd just started a war. The next morning, Kalia left for work without saying goodbye. I watched from the kitchen window as she backed out of the driveway in her silver Lexus, phone already pressed to her ear, probably calling Rhett to debrief about last night. I gave her a 10-minute head start, then followed. Trenwall Industries occupied a gleaming 40-story tower downtown. I parked across the street in a coffee shop lot and settled in to watch. At 9:15, a blue BMW pulled into the executive parking area. The driver was tall, early 30s, with the kind of confident stride that screamed, "Sales manager." Damon Fletcher. I'd done my homework. My phone rang. "Orion? It's Emma. I got your message." Emma Rodriguez was the best PI in the city, a former journalist who'd traded her press badge for a camera with a telephoto lens. We'd worked together on 3 corporate security cases. "I need surveillance on 2 people," I said. "My wife and her colleague, full package, photos, locations, communications if possible. Personal or professional? Both. And Emma, I need it fast." "When do I start?" I watched Damon Fletcher disappear into the building. "You already have." The next 3 days were a masterclass in patience and preparation. I maintained my normal routine: client meetings, security assessments, evening phone calls with Helena about our investment strategy, but every spare moment was dedicated to building my case. Emma's reports arrived like clockwork. Tuesday, lunch meeting between Kalia and Damon at the Riverside Grill, lasting 2 hours. Wednesday, Kalia's car parked outside Damon's apartment complex until 11 p.m. Thursday, hotel receipts from the Marriott downtown, charged to Damon's corporate card. The photographs were even more illuminating. Kalia and Damon in the hotel lobby, her hand on his chest. The 2 of them in his BMW, windows fogged. Her leaving his apartment building at dawn, hair disheveled, carrying her heels. But I needed more than pictures. I needed audio. Friday evening, I followed Damon home to his trendy loft in the Arts District. While he was at the gym, I used my security skills for less legitimate purposes. 20 minutes later, his apartment was equipped with 3 listening devices, each no bigger than a coin. That weekend, I learned more about my wife than I'd wanted to know. He suspects something. Kalia's voice came through my headphones Sunday night. I was sitting in my car outside Damon's building, recording everything. Orion's not that smart, Damon replied. Guy's a rent-a-cop who got lucky marrying up. You don't know him like I do. He notices things. Then maybe it's time to stop sneaking around. Leave him. Move in here. Rhett's already promised you the promotion. There it was. The promotion I'd thought Kalia earned through merit was actually payment for services rendered. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. It's complicated, Kalia said. The house is in both our names. He's got connections I need for my business. What connections? The guy installs alarm systems. If only he knew. My alarm system business was a front for something much more lucrative. Corporate espionage and security consulting for Fortune 500 companies, including, as of 6 months ago, a controlling interest in Trenwall Industries itself. Helena Trenwall had approached me after her company suffered a series of data breaches. What started as a security audit had evolved into something bigger when she discovered the breaches were inside jobs. Rhett Vossen was selling company secrets to competitors while skimming from the development budget. Helena needed someone she could trust to help her clean house. I needed capital to expand my business. We made a deal, my expertise and silence in exchange for a 49% stake in the company. On paper, I was still just a security consultant. In reality, I was about to become Rhett's boss. Monday morning brought the first phase of my revenge. I waited until Damon left for his morning run, then approached his BMW in the apartment parking garage. The device I'd prepared looked like a standard air freshener, but it contained a cocktail of industrial dye and concentrated skunk essence rigged to activate when the car reached highway speed. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Target just pulled over on I-77. Car is bright blue inside. He's puking on the roadside. Phase 1 complete. The real fireworks started that afternoon. I'd spent the weekend creating a highlight reel of Kalia and Damon's greatest hits. Photos, audio clips, hotel receipts, even GPS data showing their movements. Nothing illegal, nothing stolen, just the truth presented in high definition. At 2 p.m., I uploaded everything to a dummy Slack account and sent it to the Trenwall Industries general channel with the subject line, Workplace Ethics Presentation. My phone started ringing within minutes. Orion? Kalia's voice was tight with panic. Where are you? Client meeting. Why? Someone posted things about me and Damon online, at work. Everyone's seen it. What kind of things? Don't play dumb. This has your fingerprints all over it. I pulled into a parking lot and put the call on speaker. Kalia, I have no idea what you're talking about. What exactly did someone post? Photos, audio recordings, private conversations. Her voice cracked. Rhett's furious. He's calling an emergency meeting. He wants to see you. Me? Why would he want to see me? Because he thinks you're behind this. And honestly, so do I. That's quite an accusation. Do you have any proof? Silence on the other end. Then, Just get down here, please. We need to figure this out. I hung up and allowed myself a small smile. Rhett wanted to see me? Perfect. It was time for the security consultant to have a chat with his new employee. The Trenwall Industries lobby was buzzing when I arrived. Employees clustered around phones and tablets, whispering and pointing. The receptionist, a young woman named Tracy, looked up as I approached. Mr. Vanton, Mr. Vossen is waiting for you in conference room A. Thank you, Tracy. Busy day? She glanced around nervously. You could say that. Conference room A was on the 40th floor, all glass walls and city views. Rhett sat at the head of the table, his face red with anger. Kalia sat beside him, looking pale and shaken. Damon was nowhere to be seen. Sit down, Rhett barked as I entered. I took the chair directly across from him and folded my hands on the table. You wanted to see me? Don't play games. You know exactly why you're here. Actually, I don't. Kalia mentioned some kind of workplace incident, but she was pretty vague on the details. Rhett slid a tablet across the table. The screen showed screenshots of the Slack posts, Kalia and Damon in compromising positions, audio transcripts of their conversations, financial records showing the hotel charges. Recognize any of this? Rhett's voice was dangerously quiet. I studied the images with professional interest. Looks like someone's been conducting surveillance on your employees. That's concerning from a security standpoint. You smug piece of... Rhett started to stand. Careful, I said mildly. We're in a professional environment. Wouldn't want to say something you'd regret. Kalia leaned forward. Orion, please. Just tell us if you did this. We can work something out. Work something out? I looked between them. Are you asking me to confess to something I didn't do? Because that would be quite an ethical breach for a head of business development. Rhett's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his face went white. What is it? Kalia asked. Security wants to see me. Now. He stood abruptly. This isn't over, Vanton. Not by a long shot. After he left, Kalia and I sat in uncomfortable silence. Through the glass walls, I could see employees at their desks, still absorbed in their phones. Why are you doing this? She asked finally. Doing what? Destroying my career, humiliating me. I know it was you. I stood and walked to the window, looking down at the city 40 floors below. You know what's interesting about glass walls, Kalia? Everyone can see what you're doing inside. What's that supposed to mean? I turned back to face her. It means maybe you should have thought about that before you started conducting business in fish bowls. My phone buzzed with a text from Helena. Board meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m., time to introduce our new security director. I smiled and headed for the door. Give my regards to Damon. I hear he's having car trouble. Damon Fletcher was stupider than I'd given him credit for, and that was saying something. Tuesday evening, he actually showed up to the emergency meeting I'd arranged through a fake text from Kalia's phone. The location was perfect, the rooftop parking garage of an abandoned office building downtown. 6 stories up, isolated, with excellent acoustics for recording conversations. I'd arrived early to set up my equipment and test the sightlines. At 8 p.m. sharp, Damon's replacement rental car, a pathetic economy sedan, pulled onto the roof. He got out looking nervous, checking his phone repeatedly. The blue dye from yesterday's surprise had stained his hands and neck, giving him a Smurf-like appearance that would have been funny under different circumstances. Kalia? He called out. Where are you? I stepped out from behind a concrete pillar. She's not coming. Damon spun around, his face cycling through confusion, recognition, and fear. What the hell are you doing here? Having a conversation. Man to man. Isn't that what you wanted? He took a step backward. Look, Orion, I don't know what you think you know, but I know you've been sleeping with my wife for 3 months. I know Rhett promised her a promotion in exchange for keeping you happy. I know you charged 17 hotel visits to your corporate card, and I know you think I'm too stupid to figure it out. The color drained from his face. You're crazy. Am I? Let's review the evidence. I pulled out my phone and played a recording of his conversation with Kalia from Sunday night. His own voice filled the parking garage. Guy's a rent-a-cop who got lucky marrying up. That's illegal, he stammered. You can't record people without consent. Actually, in this state, I only need one-party consent. Since I was sitting in my own car on a public street, listening to you broadcast your conversation through open windows, I'm the consenting party. I smiled. Amazing what you learn in the security business. Damon's hands were shaking now. What do you want? I want you to understand something. You think you're dealing with some blue-collar nobody who installs burglar alarms. You have no idea who you're messing with. I walked closer, forcing him back against the concrete barrier at the roof's edge. He was taller than me but soft, the kind of guy who paid for a gym membership and used it twice a month. Please, he whispered. I'll end it. I'll transfer departments, I'll leave town, whatever you want. Too late for that. I pulled out a manila envelope. These are copies of everything I have on you and Kalia. Photos, recordings, financial records, GPS tracking data. There's also some interesting information about your expense account irregularities and the client contacts you've been sharing with Rhett's competitors. His eyes widened. How did you? The same way I found out about your gambling problem and the money you've been skimming from petty cash to cover your debts. Did you really think no one would notice? That wasn't entirely true. I'd discovered the gambling through Emma's investigation and extrapolated the rest. But Damon's guilty expression confirmed I'd hit the mark. You're going to resign tomorrow, I continued. Effective immediately. You're going to admit to the financial irregularities and agree to pay restitution. You're going to recommend that the company conduct a full audit of Rhett's department, and you're never going to contact my wife again. And if I don't? I gestured toward the city lights below. Then I release everything to your wife, your boss, the state licensing board, and the IRS. Your choice. Damon looked over the edge, then back at me. You're insane. No, I'm thorough. There's a difference. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a small device, a GPS tracker identical to the one I'd planted on his car. Recognize this? I've been following your every move for a week. I know where you live, where you eat, where you gamble, where you buy your pathetic cologne. I know you're 3 months behind on your car payment and 2 months behind on your rent. The tracker was actually just an old garage door opener I'd painted black, but in the dim lighting, it looked official enough to sell the bluff. Here's what's going to happen, I said, pocketing the fake device. You're going to walk away from this. All of it. My wife, your job, your little arrangement with Rhett. You're going to disappear from their lives completely. I can't just quit. I need the income. Should have thought of that before you decided to play house with married women. I stepped closer, close enough that he had to crane his neck to look up at me. Let me be very clear, Damon. This is the only conversation we're going to have. The next time I see you anywhere near Kalia, the gloves come off. To emphasize the point, I reached out and straightened his tie, the same gesture Rhett had made at the party. Damon flinched like I'd struck him. Good talk, I said, stepping back. Oh, and Damon? You might want to get that dye looked at. It's starting to look infected. I walked away, leaving him standing alone on the rooftop. Behind me, I heard him fumbling for his phone, probably calling Kalia to warn her. Let him. It would only confirm what I already knew about their relationship. The next morning brought news that Damon Fletcher had submitted his resignation, citing personal reasons and requesting immediate termination of his employment. According to Emma's sources inside the company, he'd also confessed to several expense account violations and recommended a full audit of the business development department. Rhett, apparently, was not pleased. My phone rang at 10 a.m. Helena Trenwall's voice was crisp and professional. Mr. Vanton, I trust you're ready for this morning's announcement? Looking forward to it. Excellent. I should mention that Mr. Vossen has been asking questions about you. He seems to think you're somehow responsible for his recent difficulties. Imagine that. Indeed. I'll see you in the boardroom at 11. The Trenwall Industries boardroom was a monument to corporate power, mahogany table, leather chairs, and a wall of windows overlooking the city. When I arrived, the senior staff was already assembled. Rhett sat at Helena's right hand, looking confident despite the previous day's setbacks. Kalia was 3 seats down, studiously avoiding eye contact. Helena stood as I entered. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to meet our new Director of Corporate Security, Orion Vanton. The silence was deafening. Rhett's face went through several color changes before settling on an unhealthy purple. I'm sure some of you know Mr. Vanton already, Helena continued. He's been conducting a comprehensive security audit of our operations for the past 6 months. His findings have been illuminating. She gestured for me to take the seat directly across from Rhett. Mr. Vanton, would you care to share your preliminary recommendations? I opened the folder in front of me. Thank you, Ms. Trenwall. Based on my investigation, I'm recommending immediate termination of several employees for violations of company policy, financial irregularities, and breach of fiduciary duty. Rhett found his voice. This is ridiculous. You can't just walk in here and… Actually, I can. I slid a document across the table. As Director of Corporate Security and 49% shareholder in this company, I have both the authority and the responsibility to protect our assets. The room erupted in whispers. Kalia's face had gone completely white. 49%? Rhett's voice was barely a whisper. Helena smiled. Mr. Vanton has been my business partner for quite some time. His expertise has proven invaluable in identifying internal threats to our organization. I opened my laptop and connected it to the room's presentation system. Let's start with the evidence. For the next 30 minutes, I walked them through everything: Rhett's embezzlement scheme, the kickbacks from competitors, the falsified expense reports, the harassment complaints that had been buried. I showed them bank records, email communications, and recorded conversations. I demonstrated how company secrets had been systematically leaked and how the business development department had been turned into a personal profit center. Through it all, Rhett sat in stunned silence while Kalia stared at the table. In conclusion, I said, I'm recommending the immediate termination of Rhett Vossen for cause, a complete restructuring of the business development department, and a full forensic audit of all financial records dating back 2 years. Helena nodded. Motion approved. Mr. Vossen, you're terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you from the building. Rhett finally exploded. You can't do this. I've given this company 8 years. I made this department what it is. Yes, I said quietly. You did. Frank Morrison appeared at the boardroom door with 2 security guards. Rhett looked around the table desperately, seeking allies, but found only averted eyes. As he was led away, he stopped at my chair. This isn't over, Vanton. Not by a long shot. Actually, it is. I stood to face him. And Rhett, next time you want to spit on someone, make sure they're not recording everything. I played a brief audio clip from the party, his voice clear and unmistakable, making threats and crude comments about my wife. The remaining board members shifted uncomfortably. Have a nice day, I said. After Rhett was gone, Helena addressed the room. I trust everyone understands the seriousness of these revelations. Mr. Vanton will be conducting individual interviews with all department heads over the next week. I expect your full cooperation. The meeting dissolved into nervous chatter as people filed out. Kalia lingered, approaching my chair as I packed up my materials. We need to talk, she said. Do we? You just destroyed my career, my boss, my colleague, my entire department. What am I supposed to do now? I looked up at her. This woman I'd married. This stranger who'd been living in my house while conducting business with my enemies. I suppose that depends on what you want, Kalia. Do you want to be part of the solution or part of the problem? She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it. Around us, the boardroom was emptying, leaving us alone with the weight of everything that had changed. Think about it, I said, standing to leave. But don't take too long. I have a company to run. The all-hands meeting was scheduled for Friday at 2 p.m. By Thursday night, the entire company was buzzing with rumors and speculation. Rhett's sudden departure had sent shockwaves through every department, and my elevation to Director of Corporate Security had people scrambling to figure out where they stood in the new hierarchy. I spent Thursday evening in my office, preparing the presentation that would reshape Trenwall Industries forever. Emma had delivered the final pieces of evidence that morning: financial records showing the full scope of the corruption, communication logs revealing the network of employees involved, and video footage from security cameras that Rhett hadn't known existed. My phone buzzed with a text from Kalia. Can we please talk before tomorrow? This is insane. I typed back, all hands meeting, 2 p.m. Everything will be explained. She tried calling twice. I let it go to voicemail. Friday morning brought an unexpected visitor to my office. Frank Morrison knocked and entered, his expression grim. "Orion, we've got a problem. Kalia's been making calls all morning, trying to rally support against you. She's telling people you're unstable, that you've been stalking employees, that the evidence is fabricated." I leaned back in my chair. How many people are listening? More than I'd like. She's got friends in HR and accounting. They're scared about what you might have on them. Do I have anything on them? Frank smiled. Not yet, but the day is young. At 1:30, I made my way to the main auditorium. The room was packed, nearly 300 employees filling every seat and lining the walls. The energy was electric, a mixture of curiosity, fear, and anticipation. Helena took the podium first, her voice carrying easily through the sound system. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. As you know, this company has undergone significant changes this week. Today, we're going to explain why." She gestured toward me. "I'd like to introduce Orion Vanton, our new Director of Corporate Security and my business partner. Mr. Vanton has some important information to share with you." I walked to the podium, scanning the crowd. Kalia sat in the third row, flanked by her allies from HR. Her face was pale but determined. Near the back, I spotted several of Rhett's former cronies, whispering among themselves. "6 months ago," I began, "Ms. Trenwall hired me to investigate a series of security breaches. What I discovered was far more serious than anyone imagined." I clicked to the first slide, an organizational chart showing the flow of information and money through the company. Red lines highlighted the corruption pathways. For the past 2 years, this company has been systematically looted by a network of employees led by former department head Rhett Vossen. They've stolen trade secrets, embezzled funds, and violated the trust you've placed in them. Murmurs rippled through the audience. I clicked to the next slide, bank records showing unexplained deposits into Rhett's personal accounts. Mr. Vossen received over $200,000 in kickbacks from competitors in exchange for proprietary information about our clients and projects. The murmurs grew louder. I showed them the evidence methodically. Emails, recordings, financial transfers, hotel receipts. Each slide built on the last, creating an undeniable picture of corruption and betrayal. But Mr. Vossen didn't work alone, I continued. He had help from people inside the company. People who turned a blind eye to his activities in exchange for personal benefits. I clicked to a new slide, photographs of Kalia and Damon at various hotels and restaurants, timestamps showing they occurred during work hours. Some employees received promotions and raises in exchange for their cooperation. Others received more personal compensation. Kalia shot to her feet. "This is character assassination. You can't just—" "Ms. Vanton," I said calmly, "you'll have an opportunity to respond. Please sit down." The use of her married name in front of her colleagues was deliberate. Around the room, people were putting pieces together, realizing that the woman defending herself was married to the man presenting the evidence. "The corruption went deeper than financial crimes," I continued. "It created a toxic work environment where advancement was based on personal relationships rather than merit, where employees were pressured to compromise their ethics or face retaliation." I played an audio recording, Rhett's voice discussing how to handle employees who ask too many questions. The room fell silent as his words filled the space. "Fire them if you have to. Make up a reason. We can't afford whistleblowers." "This is what your former leadership thought of you," I said. "This is how they protected their interests." Kalia stood again, her voice shaking with anger. "You're taking everything out of context. Rhett was a good manager who cared about his people." "Really?" I clicked to the next slide, security camera footage of Rhett's office. "Let's see how much he cared." The video showed Rhett and Kalia in his office after hours, their interaction clearly intimate. The timestamp showed it was taken 3 weeks ago, during a period when Kalia had told me she was working late on a client presentation. The auditorium erupted in whispers and gasps. Kalia's face turned red as she realized what everyone was seeing. "You had no right!" she shouted. "This is private!" Actually, it's not. This occurred in company facilities, during company time, using company resources. It's very much a company matter. I turned to address the full audience. This is what corruption looks like. It's not just about money. It's about abuse of power, betrayal of trust, and the creation of a system where the rules don't apply to everyone equally. Helena returned to the podium. Effective immediately, we're implementing new policies and procedures designed to prevent this from happening again. Mr. Vanton will be conducting individual interviews with all employees to ensure we have a complete picture of what occurred. A hand went up in the back. What happens to people who were involved but didn't know it was wrong? I answered. We're more interested in the truth than in punishment. Employees who cooperate fully and honestly will be treated fairly. Those who continue to lie or obstruct the investigation will face termination. Another hand. What about Mrs. Vanton? Is she being fired? Helena and I exchanged glances. Ms. Vanton's employment status is under review, I said. Like everyone else, she'll have an opportunity to explain her actions. The meeting continued for another 30 minutes, with employees asking questions and expressing concerns. Through it all, Kalia remained seated, no longer attempting to defend herself or her former colleagues. As the crowd dispersed, she approached the podium. You've humiliated me in front of everyone I work with. Are you happy now? This isn't about happiness, Kalia. It's about accountability. Accountability? You've been lying to me for months. You've been spying on me, recording my conversations, following me around like some kind of stalker. I've been protecting my investment, both personal and professional. She stared at me for a long moment. I don't even know who you are anymore. I'm the same person I've always been. The difference is that now you know what I'm capable of when someone tries to take advantage of me. That evening, I sat in my office reviewing the day's events. The presentation had gone better than expected. Most employees seemed relieved to finally understand what had been happening behind the scenes. Several had already contacted Frank to schedule voluntary interviews. My phone rang. Helena's voice was pleased. Excellent work today, Orion. The board is very impressed with your handling of the situation. Thank you. What's our next step? We rebuild, clean house completely, implement new controls, and make sure this never happens again. She paused. What about your wife? I looked out the window at the city lights below. What about her? She's still an employee. We need to decide what to do with her. Give her a chance to resign with dignity. If she refuses, terminate her for cause. Either way, make it clear that her behavior was unacceptable. And personally, I thought about the woman I'd married, the promises we'd made, the life we'd built together. Personally, that's between her and me. After Helena hung up, I sat alone in the quiet office, surrounded by the evidence of everything I'd accomplished. Rhett was gone, his network was exposed, and the company was finally clean. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like the end of something I wasn't sure I wanted to lose. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight, I had won. Saturday morning, I woke up to find Kalia's side of the bed empty and her suitcase missing from the closet. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Staying at Marla's until we figure this out. We need space to think. Space to think. After everything that had happened, she still believed this was something we could figure out together. I was making coffee when my phone rang. Frank's voice was tense. Orion, we've got a problem. Someone broke into the office building last night. Security footage shows 2 people in the executive level around midnight. Any idea who? The cameras caught them on the way out. It was Kalia and Rhett. I set down my coffee cup. What were they after? Hard to say. They spent most of their time in your office and Helena's, Nothing obvious was taken, but they definitely accessed your computer. Did they get anything? Doubtful. Your system is encrypted 6 ways from Sunday, but they tried. After Frank hung up, I sat in my kitchen thinking about what Kalia and Rhett thought they could accomplish. The evidence against them was already public. The company coup was complete. What did they hope to find? The answer came 2 hours later when my doorbell rang. I opened it to find 2 police officers on my porch. "Mr. Vanton, we need to ask you some questions about a harassment complaint that's been filed against you." I invited them in, already knowing what I'd find when I checked my phone. Sure enough, there were 17 missed calls from various numbers and a text from my lawyer. "Call me immediately. You've been accused of stalking and harassment." The officers were professional but thorough. They asked about my relationship with Kalia, my access to company resources, and my activities over the past week. I answered honestly, providing documentation for everything I'd done. "Sir, we have to ask, did you install surveillance equipment in your wife's workplace or vehicle?" "I installed security equipment in my own company's facilities, yes. I'm the director of corporate security." "What about tracking devices on personal vehicles?" "I never placed any tracking devices on anyone's personal property." This was technically true. I'd tracked Damon's company car, not his personal vehicle. After an hour of questions, the officers seemed satisfied that the complaints were unfounded. "We'll need to file a report, but based on what you've shown us, it appears this is a civil matter rather than a criminal one." They left, but I knew this was just the beginning. Kalia and Rhett were fighting back, and they were playing dirty. Sunday evening brought the confrontation I'd been expecting. I was in my home office when I heard a car pull into the driveway. Through the window, I saw Rhett's Mercedes, followed by Kalia's Lexus and a third car I didn't recognize. They sat in the cars for several minutes, apparently planning their approach. Finally, all 4 doors opened, and they emerged. Rhett, Kalia, Damon, apparently back from whatever hole he'd been hiding in, and Marla from HR. I activated the security system and called Frank. "I'm about to have visitors. You might want to head this way with backup." "On my way." The doorbell rang. I opened it to find the 4 of them standing on my porch like some kind of corporate intervention team. "We need to talk," Rhett said. "Do we? Because I thought our conversation was finished when security escorted you from the building." "You've destroyed our careers, our reputations, our lives," Kalia said. "This has to stop." "What has to stop? The truth?" Damon stepped forward, trying to look intimidating. "You can't just ruin people's lives because you're jealous." I laughed. "Jealous? Of what? Your stained hands and ruined credit rating? Your unemployment and pending legal troubles?" "Let us in," Rhett demanded. "We're going to settle this once and for all." "Actually, you're not." I stepped back and began closing the door. "You're going to leave my property before I call the police." Rhett put his foot in the door. "We know about your deal with Helena. We know you've been planning this for months. We have evidence." "Evidence of what? That I'm good at my job?" "Evidence that you manipulated everything, that you set us up." I opened the door wider and smiled. "Please come in. Let's discuss this evidence." They filed into my living room, looking around nervously. I gestured for them to sit while I remained standing. "So," I said, "what exactly do you think you've discovered?" Marla pulled out a tablet. "We found emails between you and Helena dating back 8 months. You've been planning to take over the company from the beginning." "Taking over? I invested in it. There's a difference." "You targeted Rhett specifically," Kalia accused. "You wanted his job." "I wanted his job, Kalia. I make more money in a month than Rhett made in a year. Why would I want to downgrade my career?" Rhett leaned forward. "Because you're a control freak who couldn't stand that your wife was more successful than you." "My wife was sleeping with her subordinate and taking bribes from her boss. That's not success. That's prostitution with extra steps." Kalia shot to her feet. "How dare you? How dare I what? Tell the truth? Present evidence? Hold people accountable for their actions?" You recorded private conversations. You followed us around. You invaded our privacy. I investigated criminal activity in my own company. Everything I did was legal and justified. Damon stood up next to Kalia. Legal doesn't make it right. Neither does embezzlement, but that didn't stop any of you. The argument continued for several minutes, with accusations flying from both sides. Through it all, I remained calm, letting them exhaust themselves while I waited for Frank to arrive. Finally, Rhett played his trump card. We're going to the media. All of it. Your surveillance, your manipulation, your abuse of power. We'll destroy your reputation the same way you destroyed ours. Interesting strategy. Let me ask you something. Do you really think the media will be sympathetic to a group of embezzlers and adulterers who got caught by their victim? You're not the victim here, Kalia snapped. You're the perpetrator. Am I? Let's review the facts. You had an affair with a subordinate. Rhett took bribes from competitors. Damon embezzled money and shared confidential information. I exposed all of this through legal means and proper channels. Which one of us is the perpetrator? Before anyone could answer, the doorbell rang. Frank's voice came through the intercom. Orion? Everything okay in there? Come on in, Frank. We're having a group therapy session. Frank entered with 2 security guards, taking in the scene with professional assessment. Sir, is there a problem here? These people are trespassing on my property and making threats. I'd like them removed. Rhett stood up aggressively. We're not going anywhere until... Frank stepped between us. Sir, you need to leave, now. This is harassment. We have rights. You have the right to leave peacefully or be arrested for trespassing. Your choice. The standoff lasted another few minutes, with Rhett and Kalia making increasingly desperate threats and accusations. Finally, Marla pulled out her phone. I'm calling the police. This is unlawful detention. I smiled. Please do. I'm sure they'd love to hear about your little breaking and entering expedition last night. That stopped them cold. Kalia's face went white. How did you... Security cameras, Kalia. The building is full of them. Did you really think you could just walk in and steal evidence without being recorded? Frank stepped forward. Ladies and gentlemen, you have 30 seconds to leave this property voluntarily. After that, you'll be leaving in handcuffs. They filed out reluctantly, Rhett muttering threats under his breath. At the door, Kalia turned back. This isn't over, Orion. I'll fight you in court. I'll take half of everything you own. You're welcome to try, but you might want to read our prenuptial agreement first, especially the infidelity clause. Her face crumpled as she realized what that meant. In our state, adultery voided most spousal property rights. She'd get nothing. After they left, Frank and I stood in the driveway watching their cars disappear into the night. Think they'll try anything else? He asked. Probably. But they're out of ammunition. The evidence is public, the company is clean, and their reputations are finished. All they can do now is make noise. Frank nodded and headed back to his car. Call if you need anything. I went back inside and poured myself a drink, standing at the window looking out at the city lights. In the distance, I could see the Trenwall Industries building, its upper floors still lit as the night shift worked to rebuild what had been corrupted. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, media attention, legal proceedings, the complex process of rebuilding trust within the company. But tonight, the war was over. I'd won. Completely, decisively, and permanently. The only question now was what to do with the victory. I raised my glass to the window, toasting the city and the future I'd fought to secure. Here's to glass walls, I said aloud, and the people too stupid to realize everyone can see inside. Outside, the night was quiet, and for the first time in months, so was my mind.